All right, so I'm going to start a little bit out of left field, but nobody's going to be talking about it. Marilyn Mosby, the former Baltimore prosecutor who was after those 6 cops for what she said was the murder of Freddie Gray back in, 14, 15, is going to prison. She's going to prison herself. And this is part of a pattern that we're seeing with either soft on crime DAs funded by George Soros who don't want to prosecute crime, but you really just get elevated because they're going to advance his lawless agenda. And they all tend to check certain identity boxes. And others like members of the squad who are proving to have disgraced themselves. So Marilyn Mosby, just as a refresher, when the country was burning, it was Ferguson and then Freddie Gray in Baltimore, and they had riots and the cops were getting bottles thrown at them and beaten up without the proper gear. She went out there, and a prosecutor has an ethical obligation not to inflame the mob, not to. And this is what she said back in the day. Watch.
To the youth of this city, I will seek justice on your behalf. This is a moment. This is your moment. And as young people, our time is now.
Okay. This is our moment. This is your moment. Okay. So after those cops, they were either hung juries or they got acquitted. She would not let up on them. She just kept coming. Well, long story short, Dennis, turns out she did a legal sleight of hand on some COVID mortgage funds. And she has now been convicted of 1 count of mortgage fraud for lying on financial documents. She tried to game the system to get a mortgage, and she had already been convicted on 2 counts of perjury in a separate criminal trial that took place in November. She's not yet been sentenced, but she stood there in court sobbing as she was convicted by this jury. She now technically faces decades in prison. She could serve anywhere up to 40 years in prison. That's highly unlikely, but this person's likely going to jail. We had a report last week that Cori Bush of the Squad is under investigation for funny business with respect to her husband, allegedly paying him, this is what we think, more than was allowed as her so-called security guard. Fannie Willis down in Georgia is now under ethical review by at least 3 different bodies, by my count, for allegedly paying her lover more than the other co-prosecutors and being dishonest about it. Okay, we could keep going. But it seems to me, Dennis, there's somewhat of a reckoning going on right now with some of these people being put in these positions who had no business being there. And the fact that they're going down based on ethical violations seems particularly apt, because while in these positions of power, it doesn't seem to me that ethics has been at the top of their concerns when they've used the power as a U.S. Congresswoman, as a DA in Georgia, as a DA in Maryland. I could keep going, in the way that the founders envisioned.
Justice is always worth the price paid for its pursuit. You see, in spite of the fact that the verdicts didn't go in our favor, there have been many gains throughout this journey to ensure that what happened to Freddie Gray never happens to another person. Never again should an officer ignore or neglect a prisoner's request for medical attention. Never again should an officer exhibit a blatant or reckless disregard for human life.
That's my wind up. What do you make of it?
So I have a darker view of this than you do in one way and a lighter view in another. The issue to me is the personal integrity of public leaders has never been a preoccupation of mine. When you have the power of a public official, how you use that power is infinitely more of concern to me than how you lead your own personal ethical life. I remember in the 1990s, I wrote a column, Adultery and Politicians. And I said, I'm against adultery. Personally, I'm a religious man, but I don't really give a damn if a politician has been faithful to his wife. It's between him and his wife, and between him and his family, and between him and his God. All I care is how he affects the 300 million Americans. At the time I wrote it was more like 250 million Americans, and the world. That's why I have no interest in the statements made about Donald Trump and his alleged character defects. All I know is that for 4 years, the United States prospered on earth and domestically during his governance. Jimmy Carter was a born-again Christian, was faithful to his wife, and he was a horrible president, and he damaged the world, and he made up the lie that Israel is an apartheid state. So I just have to tell you, the personal ethical shortcomings, or for that matter, even excellences of public officials is of secondary interest to me.
Is that the happy part or the sad part?
Good one. That was very astute of you. Both, because listen, my field of study was Soviet history. I studied Russian. I was the Russian Institute at Columbia. So I've studied the left all of my life. Lenin was apparently quite honest, to the best of my recollection. And he was a butcher. He was the man who made Stalin possible. Life is complex. And again, if you have power, I care how you wield your power. Much more than I care about how you lead your life. Whenever I go to Minnesota, which is frequent, I note that Minnesota. There's a saying in Minnesota called "Minnesota nice," which is actually accurate. There are so many nice people in Minnesota. The damage that Minnesotans do with the horrible human beings they elect proves how often nice people do terrible things. So it's one of the sad realizations of life.
So I don't agree with your take on these prosecutors and the troubles that they're getting in, because I don't see these as this isn't like just an affair. Fani Willis, very few people are coming after her because she allegedly committed adultery with this guy. That's not the thing. The thing is, many of us believe she's pursuing an unethical prosecution, weaponizing the law to stop a presidential candidate from winning a presidential race.
Correct.
And this is unethical. And so to me, it's just evidence of a pattern when you then find out, oh, she's also allegedly stooping the guy and paying him more than she's paying the other guys. And then he's flying her to Napa and then down to Jamaica and buying her, cruise tickets. All of it fits a pattern, and she falls below the ethical standards required of DAs, which is to avoid even the appearance of impropriety. Same with this Marilyn Mosby. I lived it. I watched her go out and fan the flame. She didn't give two damns what happened to the cops in Baltimore as they were under fire from those mobs down there who had been fed lies about what happened to Freddie Gray. She never let up on those cops, even after juries acquitted them and said that they're not to blame for this. And now we find out she's not an ethical person. Two different juries have said so. Multiple felony convictions now. She's the one who's going to wind up in jail. Meanwhile, where do the cops go to get their reputations back? We're seeing some just desserts meted out, and I'm ready to applaud the karma of it all.
Oh, I applaud the karma. I'm with you on that. All I'm saying is that if these people, if leftists were personally honorable, the damage they have done to society is the same. And therefore, that's what preoccupies me about the left. Everything they touch, they ruin. Whether they are personally honorable or not is not high on my interest level. That's all I'm saying. I want to crush. There is a race in this country. If the left wins, America dies. If America wins, the left dies. That's to me the bottom line, and frankly, the only line.
Is it still winnable?
Yeah, it is still winnable, believe it or not. If they allow Trump to win, if there is no new disease, if there is no cyber attack, if they don't make up a new rule about extending Election Day 4 months instead of 4 weeks. I mean, the attempt to undo honorable elections is very powerful on the left. But if they enable a Republican to win. And by the way, they preoccupy themselves with Trump, but they hated DeSantis. And if DeSantis were nominated, they would have spoken about him as a fascist and dictator, as they already do about him as governor of Florida. So this preoccupation with Trump is phony. They hate any conservative, and they have a right to, because we are the only thing stopping them from ruining the country.
Discover a holistic wellness solution with Bon Charge, a brand dedicated to optimizing every aspect of your life. Grounded in science and inspired by nature, their evidence-based products cover a broad spectrum of premium wellness items. From enhancing sleep and performance to boosting energy, accelerating recovery, and balancing hormones, Bon Charge offers a diverse range of benefits. Consider the infrared sauna blanket from Bon Charge that they say can burn extra calories and detoxify. This innovative blanket elevates your heart rate, simulating the effects of physical exercise. Bon Charge says sweating during the process helps eliminate heavy metals and toxins from your body, and that setting it up takes less than a minute. It rapidly heats up for a quick and convenient experience. For a limited time, save 15% by visiting boncharge.com/MK. Use the coupon code MK, that's BONCHARGE.com/MK, and use coupon code MK to save yourself 15%. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.